Audible.
Simon & Schuster Audio presents The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl by Essa. Read by the author. Fat. According to everything I read in both women's and health magazines, those must be right? I can look forward to obesity, diabetes, and horrible skin. That's my prognosis should I continue to indulge in my food addiction. I'd like to blame it on the new money, i.e. money I'm now earning on my own as opposed to the money my parents have had to float me until recently. But even when I had no money, I still found a way to satiate my appetite for eating out. It's probably my mom's fault. After 18 years of being limited to fast food Fridays, and sometimes Saturdays, I became obsessed with dining out. All the kids and teens in television had those hangout spots where they ate after-school junk food. The Max, the Peach Pit, the Honker Burger, the list goes on. Denied that as a kid, I lived for social eating, and sometimes solo social eating. If people are around, people on my television included, that qualifies as social eating in my book. If conversation is something I dread, eating is something I look forward to. I wake up excited for breakfast, which is hands down my favorite meal of the day. Sometimes at dinner, I fantasize about what I'm going to eat for breakfast the next morning. If it's the weekend, then I'll spend an hour or two reading glowing Yelp reviews as I research new brunch places. That's just my life. Even during my financially challenged days, when my fridge was practically empty, I always had an abundance of either milk or eggs, both on a pay week, which meant cereal, omelets, and/or pancakes were always an option. And during those super lazy and broke breakfast moments, when all I had were slices of bread and eggs, French toast. The homemade variety is a rare breakfast indulgence for me, as my mom treated French toast as a food of last resort, using the ends of the bread loaves she kept in the freezer for Thanksgiving stuffing to make hers. It was good, but I've definitely bitten into some freezer-burned French toast, much to my offense. Moving to Los Angeles instigated another present-day fatty food obsession: Mexican food. Tortillas and beans and cheese, oh my. So much cheese, so many nachos, so many artery-clogging, delectable, filling foods that don't even exist in Mexico. Whoever concocted these Mexican treats, I love you. Food is my destination, my journey, my reward, my friend. If only my metabolism matched that of the skinny, crackhead-bodied girls of my high school. How lucky they were. Many of them grew up to be the women who, even when pregnant, looked as if they had only protruding Tic Tacs in their stomachs. Women who consumed food regardless of starch or sugar content without gaining an ounce. If my self-esteem weren't directly correlated to my BMI, my love affair with food would be positively nurturing. I could flaunt my love affair on Facebook and Instagram without shame, posting pictures of myself cuddled up with food. It would be a beautiful life. But alas, in reality, I'm in a self-inflicted abusive relationship. I'm that thirsty girl who constantly checks for her man, wondering about his whereabouts, desperate to see him again. Ironically, if I treated my food like I did my real-life relationships, I'd eat only when hungry. With my true love, food, I embarrass myself to no end to get its attention. As a result, my weight has fluctuated my entire life. In my high school and college years, I was in the plus or minus 10 pounds range. In the latter half of my 20s, I've been more along the lines of the plus or minus 30 pounds range. What the hell is that? Why do I deserve that? Because as we women age, our hormones change? Is that it? Motherfuck you, nature. As I write this, sipping on a vanilla milkshake from the Melt, I'm currently stretching the seams of the plus 30 end of the spectrum, and it is truly disgusting. I've resolved many times to force myself to get a grip, exercise, and eat right. Don't turn into Kirstie Alley is my personal mantra. As of late, I can last for 6 days maximum before I wild the fuck out. There's always a social gathering, an event, a Red Lobster commercial to expose my thinly veiled self-promises for what they really are. Pathetic lies. I have a plethora of self-esteem damaging stories that should have put me on the straight and narrow path toward weight loss. And for a brief moment, they probably did. Like the time in 7th grade when my grandfather was set to pick me up after school because my mom was going to be stuck at the school where she taught French until late that evening. Despite knowing he was fastidiously punctual, I assumed that things would be different this time. I was in a new private school in Brentwood, California. The moving parking lot known as the 405 freeway was the most practical route to get to my school. Sure, you could take the streets if stop-and-go traffic made you feel more efficient, but the 405 was typically unavoidable. Getting to Barrington by 3 in the afternoon would be difficult, I reasoned. It was by this logic that when Allison, my school best friend and carpool buddy at the time, in hindsight, a frenemy, suggested we go get a slice at the popular pizza place up the hill, I agreed. I didn't even protest a bit. No, I'm pretty sure my grandfather will be here, and I'd hate to keep him waiting. Nope. As much as I'd love to blame peer pressure as an excuse, I simply can't. No suggestion of a food outing has ever elicited any protest from me. Ever. So off we went, trekking up the hill, walking past the line of luxury cars filled with parents waiting to swoop up their kids. To my credit, I probably made sure to check the line of cars for my grandfather's 1987 golden Mercedes and newsboy hat, as Allison and I traded gossip about the day's events. Not seeing his car in line only validated my decision to round out the afternoon with a food excursion. By the time we reached the restaurant, 10 minutes later, the line for ordering pizza snaked outside. That's when I started to get nervous. We'd be there for at least another 30 minutes just getting through the line, but the smell of pizza dough, garlic, and marinara sauce was enough to soothe my worries. Even if my grandfather was down there, he could wait. Where did he have to go anyway? 45 additional minutes passed before we each got our order of a slice of pizza, a drink, and fries to go. By now, the sun had unexpectedly started to set. I'm always too lazy to figure out whether it's daylight saving or not. All I know is I'm not a fan of the time change that has the sun right in your face when you wake up and takes it away at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't give a damn if it gives me an extra hour of sleep. It is not worth the productivity of which it robs me. As we made our way down the darkening hill, I got a dreadful feeling in the pit of my stomach. The line of cars was long gone, and I could only see a few parked cars in the parking lot in the distance, one of which was the golden Mercedes that had once been my father's, the first car he had bought with his new 80s OBGYN salary. If only I could walk up to the car and find him inside. He'd probably take some of my fries as punishment for being late, and that would be that. But no, my dad had long since upgraded to a gray Saturn. This would be my best frenemy's first time meeting my grandfather, and it began to dawn on me that they'd make a horrible first impression on each other. Perhaps it was the way that I greeted my grandfather, with a smile and a peppy, "Hey, Papa," that sent him over the edge. Or maybe it was that I hadn't been considerate enough to get him anything to eat or drink, although he wouldn't be able to taste it anyway, as he had lost his sense of taste and smell during some odd sickness that he caught decades ago. Or maybe it really was just the fact that he had probably spent over 2 hours in traffic, coming all the way from Inglewood, only to wait an additional hour for his greedy, greasy-faced, non-resisting pizza-ass granddaughter. Yeah, that was probably it. I opened the door, and he didn't even bother to greet Allison, which was highly unusual for him since my grandfather was known for 4 things: his New Orleans drawl, his love of bow ties, his docile, friendly charm, and his overreacting temper. Where were you? Do you know how long I've been waiting?" he asked, skipping the charm and going straight for the temper. "I'm sorry. I just want to get some pizza. I didn't know you were here." "You want to get some pizza?" His pent-up irritation made his voice thunder with disdain. My grandfather was all for buying us fast food when we deserved it. "How about some McDonald's?" he'd offer my siblings and me whenever we'd come to visit. But if we asked for McDonald's or any other type of fast food, he'd shake his head violently and take to the kitchen, announcing, We gonna make our own McDonald's, as he added green peppers and onions to his homemade hamburger patty. Yuck. Allison sat in the back seat, sipping her drink and watching in amusement as she munched on her fries like they were a bag of popcorn. My grandfather took a look at my plate of food, and then he said the unthinkable, confirming all the suspicions I had about myself, yet was too afraid to admit. That's how come you're getting to be so fat, he declared, starting the car with disgust. In fact, the way he pronounced fat sounded like he was clearing a cloud of Russian phlegm out of his throat, readying to spit it on my slightly protruding 7th grade gut. I was hot with embarrassment and shame. I couldn't even look at Allison in the back seat, already certain that she would go home to repeat this story to her older sister as they laughed at my expense. Of all the people to say that in front of, she was the worst one. But more than that, the confirmation from my grandfather that I was fat was a punch in the gut. Yet another reason why I didn't fit in, or why the boys in my school looked past me, or why I'd never be considered as pretty as my friends. As we rode in silence on the car ride home, my eyes filled with tears. I looked out of my window into the night sky and made a silent plea for God to make me skinny. Then I took a bite out of my cold slice of pizza and tried to chew quietly.